Wonderful. So, Alexey, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's great to see you again. It's been 4 years since the last time we spoke. We are here at the InClassica festival in Dubai, where you are composer in residence. This has been a long-standing relationship with InClassica. Normally, composer residencies are quite short. I always feel quite bad for composers when they have these and it's three concerts and they disappear off. Whereas you have a really nice, long-standing relationship here. What do you see as the benefits and how has this long-standing relationship gone?
Well, I'm sure everything comes to an end at some point, but in the meantime, to me, it's been an amazing thing. I had a chance to have my works performed by some of the greatest artists of our times. It's been televised on Medici Mezzo, Euronews. Like, it's been great.
Fantastic. And do you see over this period, how long have you been in residency for? Is it 10 years-ish?
So it started before the festival was even called InClassica. It was a relatively small festival in Malta. And then during COVID, they moved to Dubai and rebranded themselves as InClassica. So I guess one of the reasons I stayed with them for so long is because we kind of grew up together. Because our collaboration started when they were very small and I was completely unknown. And uh, and it's been probably like 8 years.
Wow. So with this being a long relationship, do you see that you're able to take more risks potentially with your compositions, or you feel secure in committing to doing more work in this way?
I think I've always been doing what I actually wanted to do, and fortunately, it coincided with what they wanted to present. I never felt any pressure from them to do anything different from what I wanted. I mean, they asked me for two premieres for this installment, and but I was happy to write them because it's violin and clarinet, and violin is probably my favorite instrument to write for. And for clarinet, I wrote one concerto before. It's been a while, and I was happy to try it again.
Oh, fantastic. And it's like being able to revisit some of these works as well. It's not just that you perform once, you're able to get other artists to take their take on it. Must be a real pleasure as well during this.
Oh, it's amazing. It's great to see different people.
Very much so. So with all these collaborations that you've had, is it that you're collaborating with musicians that you already know, or has this been a door opener to work with other artists, or has it been a maybe a mixture of both?
You mean this year in particular?
Over the whole.
Oh, over the whole, of course, I got introduced to a lot of new artists, and some some artists I've seen several times and become very friendly with, and since then I've seen them at other places. And but I made a lot of new connections with artists here.
Incredible. I think that's the idea of music bringing people together isn't just the listening, it's also the collaborating as well and working together. And last night we heard Gautier Capuçon perform, and he was saying that it was I think the third performance of your cello concerto, but the first time he did it with you in the audience. So it's a great way to build all of these connections. You mentioned about growing up together with the festival and that you started when you were relatively unknown. I always feel a lot of empathy for composers during this period as the music industry is changing, the world we live in is changing quite a lot. How do you see the role of or the job of a composer changing in this modern world compared to, say, composers even 20 years ago?
Oh, I don't know if anything really changed in 20 years that much. Like, obviously, if you go back, like, I know, 100 years, then I feel classical music became much more of a niche. Uh, but, like when Verdi would write a new opera and then the next day the whole country will be singing the main tunes, like that sort of stuff is not happening now. And it's not just because there's no Verdis anymore, it's just that's how it is. It's not a dominant musical style of the day. But as far as 20 years ago, I really don't know.
True, although yes, with technology, that side of like we now have streaming music and social media, and although there's lots of challenges on that side, there's also potentially opportunities where composers can reach an audience if in a way that they may not have done during that time as well.
Yeah, no, I wasn't active 20 years ago, but for me, the streaming and media have been great because pretty much the reason I became known initially is because some of my YouTube videos became pretty popular.
Incredible, and that's, as you say, that opportunity where people have discovered you and it's become popular then starts to grow. So just sort of following on from there, when you started your journey as a composer, how did you get going for those first opportunities? I'm always fascinated in the career side of musicians, and actually the very first steps are often the most difficult to get to recognition and to get performances and concerts. How did you start sort of taking your first professional steps in building connections and getting performances?
I think like my big unintended accidental advantage was that in the beginning I really didn't care much. I didn't take any of it very seriously. So as a result, I could do things that I probably wouldn't do, and probably young people like really trying to think what should be my first step in the industry would not do it. Like the first video that I published was really a joke based on a like Soviet style gangster song, and I wrote a bunch of virtuosic variations for viola. Kind of like I had this friend David Aaron Carpenter, and in pretty much every concert he used to play Chardash Monte as an encore, and so I wrote him a replacement, but it was it was clearly a joke, and it was clearly a joke that can easily be criticized because it was a criminal song about, a gangster killing his girlfriend, and all the Russian, Ukrainian, like former Soviet Union speaking audiences, they all know that song like English speaking world knows Merry Christmas. And that kind of exploded. Like as soon as it was published on YouTube, it exploded, and then non-Russian Ukrainian speakers started commenting that like, "Oh, this music is really fun," and it kind of like that was the first thing that attracted attention to me. And obviously, I would have never done it in a million years if I thought I have a long future in the world of classical music. Then I wouldn't want my first step to be associated with something like this. But and then it slowly went from there. And then David asked me to write more things, and then more violas started playing it, and then other people, and then the Tiny Malta Festival noticed me and went from there.
How exciting! I love that it comes from almost an element of play and experimenting, and it's I'll do this and it's fun, and there's not sort of with the pressures of I need to get discovered. It's I guess that might be quite freeing for creativity, not having to put such a burden on your work at that point.
Yeah, for several years in the beginning, it was all just kind of things stumbling into each other without any plan or deep thinking.
Very much so. Well, fast forward, we've now been in Dubai for 5 years with InClassica. It's a city that's growing at such an incredible rate. I think it's fair to say it's an emerging classical music audience here. How have you seen the impact of your work on Dubai and also the work of InClassica?
Well, I don't know the impact of my work, but in Classica, definitely just grew more more than anything in terms of the enthusiasm from the audience, because they always had big stars, they always had excellent orchestras, there was always like very sort of high level event, but but the audiences now in 5 years ago feel very different to me. Not only it's more people, it's a lot more standing ovations and yelling bravo at the end. So I guess in Classica found its audience here.
True, but I think there's certainly a lot of credit for yourself because your music features so highly in the festival. I think it'd be impossible not to say there's some credit due for your connections to it as well.
Thank you.
Certainly. So as well as the festival here, there's also the violin competition coming up next week as well. And in the past, or you're composer in resident for that competition, and also have been in the past for other competitions. How do you see sort of the role of those competitions in discovering the next generation?
I think they do play an important role. Like obviously, like many. there's lots of young musicians coming up, and there's a lot of noise surrounding them. Like, every teacher says that their students are geniuses, and you actually have to hear people perform in order to make your own judgments. It's very hard to figure out like who's good and who's better by just critical reviews or by what people say. And and of course, some careers develop without any competitions. Like Evgeny Kissin is one of the biggest stars in the world. I don't think he ever participated in one. But winning a competition is something that focuses the attention of the world on the performer for a while, and then lots and lots of people do have an opportunity to form an opinion. So that, I guess that's a long-winded way of saying it's a good way of getting exposure.
Definitely. Well, I think you're right that that idea of it giving exposure for what is existing talent, and there's that there are, even though there are other pathways it can hopefully supercharge. Um, with competitions, composing residence is quite a unique thing. There's only a few that I can think of that do it. What are your hopes of being a composer in residence at a competition, and do you see sort of an impact of that?
I think other competitions do it. I don't know if they call it composer in residence, but people do write obligatory pieces for competitions, and all it's the same role. It's to see people perform something that they don't have 100 years of tradition in performing.
Certainly, and I know that the winners of this competition or previous competitions are still relatively fresh, but have you seen your works then being taken around the world off the back of the competition as well?
Yeah, I think some of the people who participated in the competitions keep performing the works.
Mm, that must be really encouraging to see it being taken on by people who've discovered it for the first time and may not have had chance to perform or come across your music before then.
Yeah.
Certainly. So I'm always fascinated, as I mentioned, about musicians' careers, and I took a little bit of an unusual step. I used to be a musician, and I've now switched into working in administration and the dark arts. You previously had a career as a mathematician and in finance. What skills from that world have helped you in the career as a composer? Because I guess it's such a difficult being a composer. There's lots of business side to things as well, of networking, getting commissions, all of this side. Have you found there's anything that's been transferable
Well,
across?
like my previous life actually involved very little business. Like I was just a nerd sitting in front of the computer most of my life. But as far as mathematics, it was really really useful in learning new things. I think it'd be useful in learning any kind of new things, including music theory, because I think any kind of like hard science background just sort of makes you very good at organizing your thoughts, and at like once you learn new things, you kind of place them in their own, like in a certain order, like to try to make things make sense. And so, like, I think anybody, like, whenever my friends have children who don't know what their children should be doing, and I kind of have children in a similar situation too. Like when parents wonder, like, what should they really concentrate on, and my answer is always like hard sciences, because then if you decide that you want to do something else, you're already very well equipped to learn that something else much faster than if you didn't have that background. So in that sense, having been a mathematician before was really a good thing for me. But now I don't think mathematics plays a very big role in what I do.
True, but as you say that, I guess the problem solving, determination, being able to learn new things quickly, it's those skills side of it rather than necessarily the content. And even it is the organization side, planning time, project management that may have been part of being glued to a computer at times, they come across in a way that's hopefully very helpful.
Yeah.
Speaking of that determination side, I was impressed last time we spoke about just how much music you've composed in what feels like a relatively short period of time. You seem someone who's obviously very driven to find new projects, new exciting things. What's the next sort of thing for you that you are most excited by coming up as a new project?
So I just completed two large scale concertos for violin and clarinet that were presented here, and I couldn't be happier about the way the premieres went. and I have a bunch of things in different stages of development. Pretty much the only one that's worthy of a mention at this point, because that will definitely be completed, is a cello sonata.
Oh, amazing. So more cello work. As a former cellist, I'm very happy to hear that.
Oh, I love cello. It's such a great instrument. It's so in a way it's easier to write like emotional music for cello because you don't have to go very high where it starts feeling screaming. You're more or less in the human voice range, but things already start feeling very intense and I love it.
Oh, fantastic. It's good to hear. And are there any projects that are a little bit more unusual? I know that sort of there's a temptation now in this world where we to do large scale projects, whether it's with film or with gaming or these other things. Is that an area that you're interested in, or are you particularly focusing on, I don't want to say traditional, but doing collaborations where it's instrument solos and orchestral works?
It's probably mostly instrument solos and orchestral works. I like somewhere on the back of my mind, I have a thought about maybe writing a ballet, but it's not gonna happen anytime soon. And and I kind of wish I could write an opera. I really love it, and I sort of feel that my melodic style of writing would fit well into that. But I have a big language problem because I really wish I could write in Italian, but I don't speak Italian. I don't want to write in a language I don't speak because little nuances matter. And and like r- English, like if I write in English, it probably might as well be Broadway.
So, with that, would you be interested in collaborating with a librettist, or do you see it being really important for the composer to be involved in the text as well?
Well, you kind of need both, I think. Like if I were to write an opera, which probably is not going to happen, as I said, because of the issue of Italian, but I'm sure that I would need a librettist because I'm not going to be able to write one myself. But I also would want to have some input.
One of the nice parts about having those collaborative sides is you can actually push back and you can find ways of getting around, and especially if you have particular musical ideas. But certainly never say never. The time is definitely on your side for these things, which is very exciting. Um, so with an eye sort of on the future, we've sort of spoken about your plans and these projects going forwards. Um, the industry is going through a big significant change recently with coming out of COVID, new technologies, challenges with funding models. It's a period of change which I think that can be quite exciting. If you could change one thing in the industry, what would it be and why?
Well, I have a feeling that throughout most of the 20th century, the musical establishment, for the lack of the better word, has been sort of ignoring the audience's wishes, and that a lot of the a lot of the push towards avant-garde is not really what the audiences want, and the audiences keep sending them that message back, and it's more or less being ignored. Like Rachmaninoff spent his whole life being criticized for being too conservative, and look how he dominates the concert halls. And people who were most vocal in criticizing them, like only music historians remember their names. But nevertheless, the vast majority of music that's being written is sort of being written by music PhDs for music PhDs, and that's the thing that's strange to me. And I guess if I wanted something to change, that would be that.
The reason I'm laughing slightly is I was recently at a conference for orchestras, and there was a chief executive of an orchestra on stage, and they were given 2 minutes to do like a presidential style debate and give a provocation. And his was, "I'm sick of having to program all this music that no one wants to hear, and it's by people with PhDs for people with PhDs, and no one actually wants to listen." So your words were so similar; it really made me smile. But hopefully, we're getting a change there to actually consider the audience. If we were thinking it in terms of a commercial world, it would be madness to completely ignore your what we could term a customer. In this case, it's an audience. So why would you compose something that is going to alienate people they won't like and is potentially not even going to sound nice in some scenarios? Um, Fantastic. So As well with this being a period of change, we've also seen lots of bad news stories about the industry and funding and different things. To put a positive spin on it, where do you see hope? What gives you hope for the future of classical music?
Well, I I think we do have young people in the audiences that probably for 100 years everybody is lamenting the fact that the classical music is dying and the audiences are all aging. But we have like young people and the aging audiences are still there. And 20 years ago they were young. So somehow the classical music survives, and I think it will survive because it's things get in and out of fashion, but the works of the greats are like the most amazing things created by humans in all of history. Like you can have old masters selling for way less than something that somebody did from a spray can in 5 minutes because fashions change. But the old masters are still old masters. They will always be what attracts people to museums.
Very much so. Well, I think it's a really heartening point, and we've seen that in case here. The audience is very diverse and young, and is something that has grown as well from my experience of being here 4 years ago. So it's testament to the power of it. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been great to chat. As something to end on, I think it'd be really fantastic if you could, for people who are discovering you for the first time, what would be three pieces of yours that you would like them to potentially discover as a way into to finding out more about your music?
Now, I'm always extremely partial to the very recent works. So I think let me give you four, because they're the most recent. The clarinet concerto that was premiered here, violin concerto that was premiered here, violin and viola concerto that's from about a year ago, and the piano concerto from about 2 years ago.
Incredible. It's always good to have a bonus one as well. So thank you for, for four there. Well, Alex, it's been so nice to catch up and hear everything about how it's going. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of your music this week.
Thank you, it was a real pleasure.